So we are starting with the first lecture on this condensed matter physics by our BRC colleague, Professor Dr. Virendra Sharma. He has done his PhD in condensed matter physics and is scientific officer at Solid State Physics Division in BRC. He has won several awards. His HBNI Homeoba award also he has got in training school. He has got NASI Young Scientist Award, and also he's our INEAS member, newly elected INEAS member, and also he's a NASI member in last year. So with this, I invite Sharma to present his talk. Virendra, you can share your slides and start.
Thank you, Dr. Vivek, for nice introduction. So, good morning to everyone. Am I audible?
Yes, you're
Yes,
audible.
sir.
Yes, just a minute. So, good morning to everyone. Myself, Virendra Kumar Sharma. I am a scientific officer in Bhabha Atomic Research Center and in working in the area of solid state physics division. I'm also, so my main research area is in the soft condensed matter or membrane biophysics. I'm using mainly the scattering techniques and classical molecular dynamics simulation to reveal the structural and the dynamical aspects of these systems. I am also a proud member of the Indian National Young Academy of Science. So it's a great privilege to interact you with live YouTube and I must acknowledge that the Department of Physics, University of Mumbai, and Indian National Young Academy of Science for this excellent idea to give you an overview about the competitive exams, the problems in the different area of the physics. I will take the part of the problems in the solid state physics. So I took, there are many like you competitive exams, the students are trying to prepare for the CSA, NetGRF, GATE, JEST. So I took the syllabus for the GATE for solid state physics, and so it contained the part elements of the crystallography, diffraction methods for structure determinations, bonding in solids, lattice vibrations, thermal property of solids, then electronic property of the solids, transport property of the solids, magnetic and property of the solid, and then superconductivity. So it's difficult to cover like in a 1 hour lecture all the topics. So excuse me, but I will give you glimpse most of the parts. So I plan to cover here these topics: elements of crystallography, diffraction methods for structural determination, bonding in solids, lattice vibrations, electronic property of the solids, magnetism, and superconductivity. So I will discuss one question for each of the parts, and will try to give you a flavor of this area and how to solve the problems and within the time framework. So if you have any questions, please drop in the YouTube chat box, and the moderator will let me know, so we can discuss later on. So this is the first problem I am discussing. This came in the JEST 2012. So the problem say when a beam of SA incident on a body-centered cubic crystal, BCC crystal, if the difference between the incident and the scattered wave vectors is Q, where HA plus KB plus LC, ABC are unit vector of the associated cubic lattice, the necessary conditions for scattered beam is given a Laue maximum, and the four conditions are given. So basically question is asking that if your system has a body centered cubic crystals, so what is the extinction condition, extinction rules for these crystals? And this is a very common area in the MSc physics coursework. We do solve for the many extinction rules for many crystal structures like simple cubic, body center cubic, FCC, interpenetrating FCC. So this is they are asking about the BCC and what is the condition. So answer I'm telling you answer will be the H plus K plus L is even. And how we reach this answer? So this is the solution. Sorry for the typo. So this is the body centered cubic. So we know in body centered cubic we have number of atoms are 2. So one the share by the all the corners, one in the body center, and the basis, every crystal made of lattice plus basis, and the basis of these two atoms are 0, 0, 0 and half, half, half. So now we need to calculate the unit cell structure factor by from these two bases and find out what are the extension rules. So we know the structure factor of unit cell, irrespective of the probe, like you use X-ray or neutron, then only your the atomic scattering factor or weight factor, the small f or b scattering length will change. But unit cell structure factor is defined by the summation over number of atoms in unit cell or basis in unit cell. Then the weight factor for the X-ray we call about atomic scattering factor because it's a form factor, but for neutron we call a scattering length b, and the exponential part 2 pi iota, and Sj prime, Yj prime and Zj prime are the coordinates of the basis, and the H, K, L are the Miller indices, which are the integers, and the intensity which you observe is the proportional of the structure factor of the unit cell. So now we know we have a BCC, so our number of atoms in the unit cells are 2, and we know the Xj prime, Yj prime and Zj prime of the both atoms. It's 0, 0, 0 and half, half, half. So just we need to solve this summation and our answer will be there. So if you put these two coordinates 0, 0, 0 and half, 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 your unit cell structure factor will come f e की power 2 pi iota 0, all comes are 0, and plus e की power 2 pi iota, and then you put half, half, half here, half 2 cancel to the 2 part, and it will be pi iota h plus k plus l. So we know e की power 0 is 1, and this term will be there. Now we need to find out when is the f is the 0 or when f is the non-zero. So for this we know very basic that if e की power n iota pi is equal to minus 1 की power n. What I mean to say here, if you have odd n, then it will be minus 1. If you have even n, it will be plus 1. So what will be the condition when your f will be 0, when h plus k plus l will be odd? If this will be odd, the second term will come minus 1, 1 minus 1, 0. So we won't get any scattering for that plane. That plane will be absent. But because h, k, l are integers, so it could be the summation will be odd or even. The second condition, when h plus k plus l are even, then you will get f is equal to 2f, plane will be present, and it will give you a Laue maximum. So this is a very simple problem for body centered cubic. Only number of atoms are 2, so you get the answer h plus k plus l are even. So similarly, I can give you assignments. You can calculate for the simple cubic. You can calculate for face centered cubic. In face centered cubic, you will have base 4. You know all the coordinates of the base 0, 0, 0, half, half, 0, half, 0, half, and 0, half, half. You calculate for FCC and you see how the extension, these are called the extension rules. So here the answer comes for BCC that H plus K plus L when even, you will get a Laue maximum. Now I choose the second the problems in the for the diffraction, the similar to related to this problem, so that you can easily correlate. And this problem is this one, and this appear in the GATE 2011. What this problem say, a metal with BCC structure show the first maxima, first diffraction peak, or first peak means the smallest angle, your D is the largest one. At a Bragg angle of theta is equal to 30 degrees. The wavelength of X-ray used is 2.1 angstrom. The volume of the primitive unit cell of metal is. So this question is really very, very good. I like it. Because I have capitalized and the bold the primitive also. So it's like one more step here. So it's a very much chance that the students in hurry and miss the part of the primitive and they calculate the wrong answer. So it say that your structure is the BCC. You need to calculate the smallest angle peak diffraction angle. You need show the smallest angle diffraction peak at theta is equal to 30 degree. It given the wavelength. It just asking the unit cell, but not the BCC unit cell. It's asking the primitive unit cell, and we know what is the primitive unit cell. In primitive unit cell, only there is a one lattice, one basis. But in BCC, we know there are two bases. So whatever the volume you calculate for the BCC, you just need to divide by a factor 2. So instead of answer 26.2 angstrom inverse, angstrom cube, the answer will be 13.1 angstrom power cube. So let's see how we get this answer. So we know the structure is BCC, and we just now derived extension rule for BCC. When H plus K plus L is equal to odd, then F is equal to 0. You will not get any diffraction peak. So when H plus K plus L is equal to even, then you will get F is equal to 0. Now we know that your lattice spacing D, the plane distance between the plane D is related to A by square root H square plus K square plus L square. So what is the lowest number of H square plus K square plus L square, which will give you the largest D? That means the smallest diffraction pack, and it would be correspond to 110 or 101 or 011 basically, because 1 plus 0 2 even, and square root of 1 square plus 1 square plus 0 square under root 2, which will be lower than the 200. So the first diffraction peak will correspond to 110 by this relation. So I told you that HKL is equal to 1010 or 101 or 011. This will give you the largest D, and from the we know this is the D value, the maximum D is equal to A by under root 2. So now only the question is we need to find out the lattice constant A, so that volume can be calculated. So we know the Bragg's law. The diffraction condition is that the difference, the interference pattern, the constructive interference will come when lambda is equal to 2D sine theta. So we know the scattering angle, we know the D. So we lambda is equal to 2.1 angstrom, theta is equal to 30. So we just need to calculate A. So we put in the equations, and we found that A is equal to under root 2 multiplied by 2.1 angstrom. So what is the A value? The lattice constant value is 2.97 angstrom. Now we know if it's the cubic structure, but the trick here is they ask again I am repeating the volume of the primitive unit cell. So if you calculate the volume of BCC, it will be V is equal to A to the power 3. But because in primitive unit cell is a minimum volume cell corresponding a single lattice point of a structure, and we know in BCC there are two bases, so we need to divide by a factor of 2. So if you do cube of 2 to the power 0.97 and divide by 2, you will get V is equal to 26.2 by 2 angstrom cube. So there is an option also 26.2, there is an option of 13.1, but the correct answer will be 13.1 because of this word primitive. So here we discuss in the two problems basically the some basic elements of the crystallography and a very typical problems of the diffraction, where we have given your wavelength and the scattering angle, and just asking either lattice constant, or they can ask you like the volume of the different primitive cell or volume of the unit cell. So these pretty questions are very similar and very simple. Just we need to know the basic rules about the Bragg's law, or the what is the distance between the planes, the relation with the lattice constant and HKL, how to calculate the HKL, different Miller indices. So this is the part you should I think cover, and I have seen many papers of the JAST, GATE and NET. Many questions you will easily find one or two questions related to these topics. So I move to the third point, which is the bonding in solids, and it's very interesting point for many, like not for the competitive exams, for many interview I have seen. This is the starting point when we and the reviewer or when the examiner asked about these questions about the bonding on the force in the solid. So I have taken, like that in atoms or ions, they are interacting by many interactions like ionic interactions, or even in like a gaseous or the like on the swap matter, many van der Waals interactions. So I have taken a problem related to the ionic interactions, but I must recommend you to go through the van der Waals interactions. It's very useful interaction, very important interactions, and very simple to this problem. You should know all the what is the minimum distance, what is the potential barrier, what is the repulsive part, what is the interactive part. It's very good. Okay, in this problem, it appear in GATE 2013. This problem say the total energy of ionic solid given by E minus alpha e to power square 4 pi epsilon r plus b by r to power 9, where L is the Madelung constant, R is the distance between the nearest neighbors in the crystals, and B is a constant. They ask if R0 is the equilibrium separation between the nearest neighbors, then value of B is. It's very simple question. Just we should know a very basic fact that at the equilibrium separation, the slope, the energy dE by dR will be 0. If you know this basic thing, you can easily calculate the separation. So this energy term we know. So the answer will be, I will show you already here. It will be the A. And how we did this answer? So I discussed this problem here. So if you have a two nearest neighbor, two ions separated by R, in the energy total energy term will be this minus sign. Show the attractive term, which is depend on the 1 by R, and you must have a short range repulsive term which take care of the exclusion principle. If there is only attractive term, these both ions should collapse, should overlap. If there is a repulsive term which is the very short range, so it depend on r ki power 9. So many people represent r ki power n or exponential part. So in van der Waals, if you see, it will be like a sigma by r ki power 6 or b r ki power 12. So there are many terms here. So just the problem is very simple. You have a total energy term, a attractive term, a repulsive term. You want, so if you plot the energy diagram, the attractive term is a decay at much larger R, but the repulsive term is dominating, starting to dominate at very lower R. So if you calculate the total energy term, it will be like this, a minima, and then it go ahead. Because of this, it stops the overlap of the electron cloud. So they ask, EA ask what at equilibrium distance, what will be there, the slope that you see it here, the dE by dR will be 0 at equilibrium separation. And this is true for any interactions, for ionic, for van der Waals, whatever you talk about. So if you know this basic fact, the dE by dR, variation of in energy with respect to R will be 0 at equilibrium separation. You just need to solve this, is like a differentiation for you. So for the first term, if you differentiate with respect to R, it will be R square and minus become plus. Here minus B R ki power 10, you put R equal to R0 equilibrium distance. This is the simple one. You calculate the B and you will get your answer. So here I would recommend you just, apart from the ionic part, you must go through about the van der Waals interaction part. It's a very interesting one. And similarly, you can solve what is the equilibrium distance, what will be the value of like B if unknown parameter. You can relate it by the sigma and epsilon. So here in the three parts we have discussed elements of the crystallography, the diffraction mode, and the bonding on solids. Now we move to some very interesting property of the solids, which we call like a transport property, vibrations, and the magnetism and superconductivity. So we know that atoms or molecules in the solids, they are not static. At any temperature, they are doing in the solids, they are doing like periodic vibrations, even they do other motions also. And this periodic vibrations called phonon, the quanta of the periodic vibrations. So this problem I have chosen to related to the phonon part, and it's a very simple one and very interesting one. So you must like in MSc coursework, I think many of you have solved the monoatomic and the diatomic, one dimensional monoatomic and the diatomic Bravais lattice. So here I chosen a simple one, the one dimensional monoatomic Bravais lattice, and this problem appears in GATE 2015. So what does this problem say? You know the dispersion relation, the relation between the W and K, the energy and the wave vector transfer. The dispersion relation for phonons in a one-dimensional monoatomic Bravais lattice with lattice spacing A and consisting of ion mass is given by omega k is equal to square root of 2c by m 1 minus cos ka, where W is the frequency of oscillation and k is the wave vector and c is the spring constant. For the long wavelength mode, he has given for the long wavelength mode. What he mean about long wavelength? That your wavelength lambda is much greater than your lattice constant. Then what is the ratio of phase velocity to the group velocity? It's very simple question. So only he have given a condition that long wavelength mode के लिए what is your ratio? What you need to calculate the phase velocity, you need to calculate the group velocity, and what is the ratio? And the answer I am telling its answer will be the C, the one. And how we reach this answer? We solve this problem. So we know the dispersion relation for the monoatomic crystal. It will be the wave vector transfer. This is the first Brillouin zone minus pi by a to pi by a, and this is the relation which we talk about here. The condition which he say for the long wavelength mode, lambda is greater than a, and we know what is the k, 2 pi by lambda. So if your lambda is much greater than a, the ka term will be very small because k is inversely proportional to lambda, 2 pi by lambda. So if your ka is very small, you just need to expand your cos x term. So what we know, the cos x is equal to 1 minus s square by 2 plus s4 by factorial 4. But you neglect the higher order term. You can relate it very small value of Ka. The cos Ka is equal to 1 minus Ka square by 2. You put this term here. What we will get? The 1 will be cancelled by this 1, and you will get only Ka square by 2 by 2. And the 2 cancel this 2, and then you will get Ka out of square root divide multiply by elastic constant C by m. So this is the relation, the dispersion curve for the condition of the long wavelength mode. This is very simple one now. Now we know the dispersion curve for long wavelength mode is AK by multiply by square root of C by m. We know what is the phase velocity, omega by k, and what is the group velocity, d omega by dk. So we need to calculate the phase velocity here, which will be divided by k. It will be a multiplied by c by m. For the group velocity, you need to take a derivative with respect to k. If you take a derivative with respect to k, it would be the same. You just k will be 1, dk by dk will be 1, and this will be the constant factor. So we can see here that Vp and Vg value are pretty same. So if you divide, its value will be 1. So answer is the C1. So you need to see like this problem always gives some hint to you how to solve this complex equations or the derivative one. You have to choose the right approximation which they have given. They have hinted you already, and this problem becomes very simple. So now we move to the next problem. This is the related to I talk about the transport property of solids, many conductivity, electrical conductivity, thermal conductivity. You can see the Fermi energy of metals. So there are many interesting topics are there. So I have chosen a topic of Hall effect. It's a very popular one, and many people like. And this problem appears in again GATE 2015. I like this problem. It's very good problem. So we know that the Hall coefficient for metals is negative, for N-type semiconductor is negative, for P-type semiconductor is positive. So what happens when you talk about the pure intrinsic semiconductor? That means pure intrinsic semiconductor, what will be the Hall coefficient? And this is an interesting one. So the question is related to this problem. They say in a Hall effect experiment, the Hall voltage for an intrinsic semiconductor, now they talk about Hall voltage, it's okay, is negative. So we know in metal, because the carriers are the conductivity carriers are the electron, that's why the Hall coefficient is negative. For N coefficient, because the carrier is dominating by the N-type by electron, Hall coefficient is negative. For P-type semiconductor, because the conductivity is done by the Hall, so Hall coefficient is positive. What happens when you have a intrinsic semiconductor? That means the N is equal to P. In that case, why this Hall voltage or Hall coefficient becomes negative? So the options are given for is N is equal to P, N is greater than P, U is greater than UH, MH greater than ME square. Effective mass of Hall and effective mass electron. So we know that this condition is not true. So B is already out. So we have only A, C, and D. So let's see the problem. So we always, whenever we solve the problem, we also use the elimination rule. So whatever the conditions is like absolutely wrong, you just neglect out that like for this problem we know that N is never greater than the P for the intrinsic semiconductor. So B is out of option. Now we have only three options. We have to choose one. So even like in earlier problems also, you have to always see the method of elimination. Okay, some of the options can easily be eliminated by the by the rule of the, you can see the units, what is the dimension or any other hint they have given. So you check the dimension of the whatever quantity you are calculating, is the dimension matches or not matches. So this by a common sense, like we can eliminate some of the options. So here answer is that mobility is for the electron is much greater than the Hall, and this is the region that the Hall voltage or Hall coefficient become negative for intrinsic semiconductor. So just to refresh you about the Hall effect, if we have a like a rod, conductor rod, and if you put some voltage and then the current flow, but in presence of a magnetic field, what we found that this current, the electron, the carrier doesn't follow the straight path, but they follow some curved path, and they created a voltage difference opposite to the, or the perpendicular to the applied field, electric field, and this voltage is called the Hall voltage, and this effect is called the Hall effect. Basically this stop to move electron in that direction. So like here in the problem, I have applied a electric field in the x direction and applied a magnetic field in the z direction. So the Hall voltage or whole electric field will generate in the y direction perpendicular. We should revise also the Lorentz force whenever a charge in moving in presence of the magnetic field. It's the direction of the charge, how it moves. So we know here that Hall voltage is depend on the current density and the applied magnetic field, and the RH is the coefficient of the, we call it the Hall coefficient. And these are both are the positive thing, J and BZ. Only we need to see the RH. If a Hall coefficient is negative, the Hall voltage will be negative. And as I mentioned earlier, when a conduction is dominated by a single charge carrier like a simple metals or the N type or P type, the RH very can be easily can be estimated by 1 by NQ. So if your charge carrier is the positive, the Hall coefficient is positive, which is the case of the P type semiconductor. When Hall case is when charge carrier is the negative, the Hall coefficient is the negative, like a metal or N type semiconductor. But when we have a both for semiconductor, we have a both charge carriers, electron as well as the hole. So again, I have used a approximation here that for the moderate magnetic field, if your magnetic field strength is not so strong, this Hall coefficient can be simply written instead of the 1 by NQ, written by the P mu h square minus N mu e square, where N and P are the concentration of the electrons and holes, and mu e and mu h are the mobility of electron and hole. Now for pure intrinsic semiconductor, the condition is the density of N and P are same. The concentration of electron and hole are same. If you put N is equal to P in this formula, your Hall coefficient, then you see this term will be common and the cancel out. This is like A square minus UH square minus UE square by E UH plus UE. You know UH square minus UE square, you can write UH plus UE and UH minus UE. Sorry, there's a typo here, it should be square, I think. So you just put here, and what you will get, RH is equal to UH minus UE by NEUH plus UE square. So sorry, there should be a square here. So when you take out the N term here, so this will be cancelled, one N will be there, and one mu H plus mu E is cancelled out by here. So you will get only UH minus UE upon NE UH plus UE. So if the problem here, your Hall coefficient for intrinsic semiconductor is negative, this term can be negative only because if UH minus UE is negative. So this is happen because when UE is greater than UH. So the answer will be the mobility of electron is higher than the hole. This is the reason the for Hall coefficient for the pure semiconductor is negative. So I think so there are many questions you can see for the Hall coefficient in these competitive exams. I have seen many papers, and then you just for the metals it's positive or negative, and for semiconductor you just need to see. And this is the last problem. I am talking about the magnetism and superconductivity. So there I have seen I think couple of the problems in this area. So I suggest to go very simple for the magnetism, for the curve for the curve between the susceptibility and the temperature, or curve between the M and H. We talk about the diamagnet, paramagnet, ferromagnet, Curie law. This is a very simple topic which we cover in the coursework. So here I am talking about some superconductor. It's a very fascinating subject. It's a very fascinating area. So the question is very simple. What is the susceptibility and relative permeability of an ideal superconductor? So we know the susceptibility and the relative permeability of ideal superconductor, and given the options are here, and answer will be A. How we reach this answer, we can tell. So what is the superconductor? When you lower the temperature at a particular temperature, you see that the resistivity is zero nearly. So you can they behave like a superconductor, no loss in current. They have one of another very interesting property, that they behave like a perfect diamagnet. If you recall, if you like you've seen the Meissner effect. So if you put this perfect superconductor, ideal superconductor in a external magnetic field, below TC they externally repel all the magnetic field. So above TC they are behaving, they are allowed to permeable the magnetic field, but as soon as they go in the superconducting state, they repulse all the magnetic flux lines. So just this is the concept we are going to use for this calculation, and it's a very simple one. So we know when you put a material in the magnetic field, what will be the induced magnetic field? It depends on the magnetic external magnetic field. This is the H, and the induced magnetization and the permeability. So B is equal to mu 0 plus M plus H. This is the induced magnetic field when you put a system, a materials in the magnetic field. For the ideal superconductor, what will be that the induced magnetic field will be 0. In the superconducting state, you put a magnetic field, it repels all the magnetic field lines. So if you solve this equation, very simple one, this happen because M is equal to u0 is not equal to 0. So why? Because M is equal to minus H. Whatever you are applying the magnetic field, the induced magnetization is just opposite to the applied magnetic field, so that it can cancel out the magnetic field. So we know the susceptibility formula, chi is equal to M by H. So by this, very simple, we can calculate for the ideal superconductor, chi should be minus 1. And we know what is the relative permeability, it's just chi plus 1. So if you solve this one, you will get 0. So very simple question, that for ideal superconductor, what will happen? You will get minus 1, 0. Here I would recommend you should go about some magnetic stuff, which I told you, the Curie-Weiss law, Weiss molecular Weiss constant, Curie constant, Weiss molecular magnetic field. And for about superconductivity, two types superconductor type 1, type 2, Meissner effect, London equation, coherence length. These are the questions which generally come into the examination. So here I finish my part. So here I give you the reference. It's a very good book. I would say the first one, The Introduction to Scholastic Physics by the Charles Kettle. The second is the Ashraf Marming. It's very good book. It's like and the third one is the reference is the Ashok Pillai. If these three books are, I think, the sufficient for the problems which you cover in the GATS or JAST or NET other competitive exams. So thank you for very much for your kind attention. And if you have any further query, any comments, please let us know. And in future also you can contact me by email. My email ID is vksthy@gmail.com. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Virendra Sharma. And now we can take some questions.
As of now, there are no questions in the chat as far as I can make out. So just let me try to refresh.
Have any crystalline system? The atoms are arranged in a very regular manner, and you get if you do a diffraction pattern, you will get a very well defined peaks. And how we get the information how the atoms are arranged in the crystals by these peaks. So these peak information are related how these atoms are arranged in the plane. So that's why I told that structure factor comes into the picture here. And what is the structure factor here? Let me show the slides here. Yeah. So again, it's irrespective of any props you talk about, like neutron, X-ray, electron. This is the structure factor here. So it consists how your atoms are arranged in your crystal, which reflect from the Fj, Yj prime, Zj prime, HKL Miller indices. And this F is mainly depend on the interaction between your probes and your materials. Like if you talk about X-ray, it is the interaction between the X-ray electric field and your electron clouds. If you talk about the neutron, this is the show the interaction between the nuclei and the neutron. If you talk about the electron diffraction, again the electron electric interaction. So this F is basically show the interaction between the probe and your system, or electron cloud or nucleus or atom. And this second term basically show how your atoms are arranged in the lattice. And this terms, the intensity whatever you get is proportional to the F square. And there are other terms also, the multiplicity, these many other factors. So this is the basic term. You can tell which planes will be absent and which plane will be present for your given structure. And by this also you calculate, if you given a diffraction pattern, by this you calculate the reverse also, that what is the structure of your system. So this is the concept of the structure factor of unit cell. Basically, again, so if you calculate here, like I calculated for the BCC, you can calculate for FCC, and you will get other extinction rules. So these rules are called extinction rules. On which condition of HKL you will see a diffraction peak, or on which condition for HKL you won't see a diffraction peak. So am I clear, or still you have any?
Sir, it is fine. And if they have further doubts, then they will contact you by email as you have suggested.
Yeah.
There is one more question on this topic itself. What is the physical significance of the reciprocal lattice?
Physical significance of the reciprocal lattice. That's again very good, very interesting one. In physics, we always talk about the physical significance. So what I would say, in like when you do a scattering, it's very difficult to see how the molecules or atoms are arranged in a lattice, because we have to see like our neck eye the resolution typically lambda by 2, the diffraction limit. So it's about 2000 angstrom, 3000 angstrom. And many microscopes like this is the limit, the diffraction limit. So if you want to see real how the atoms and the crystals are arranged, one is that you go by microscopy, by which you can tune many parameters, and another is the scattering technique. So in scattering technique, the advantage is it's like a sample average. You can see the growth, how the atoms molecule are arranged. but I would say that they are like you are not looking really the real space. You are looking in the reciprocal space. So what we are looking the intensity versus Q, the wave vector transfer, and Q is like only the conjugate, I would say, for the position of atom. Q are a Fourier conjugate. So that's why here concept of the reciprocal lattice come into the picture, or reciprocal space come to the picture. When you talk about the structures of the real structure in the any scattering technique, in any diffraction pattern, we are getting information in the reciprocal space. And by reciprocal space, you are getting the information by doing Fourier transform. You are getting the information of the real space. So this is the basic, I would say, the physical significance of the reciprocal space that you are looking in the reciprocal space for the in the scattering technique.
So just to summarize, is it a correct statement that a microscopic picture is a picture of the real space, whereas an X-ray diffraction pattern is like a picture in reciprocal space?
Perfect. Yeah, this is the perfect. Yeah, yeah, you can summarize it. Not
Yeah.
any X-ray diffraction, any diffraction technique is the reciprocal.
Okay. Okay. There is I mean, there are a few questions. Like, I mean, I'll just read it out. That if instead of BCC in that particular problem where the primitive cell was asked, if it was FCC, then the factor to divide by will be 4, right? The number of atoms inside the standard unit cell.
Yes. Yes.
Is that correct
Yeah.
understanding from
Yeah.
the student side?
Yeah. So this is the question for the second. No, no,
Yeah,
this
the
is not
second,
for.
yeah, the next
Yeah.
question.
Yeah.
Next
Perfect.
question.
Yes, you're right. Absolutely right. The primitive unit cell. If they ask about the primitive cell, if they ask about the unit cell, no need to divide. But if they ask about the volume of the primitive unit cell instead of BCC, FCC, you have to divide by the 4 because the base for number of atoms in BCC 2, number of atoms in FCC 4. You're right. Absolutely right.
Okay. There is a question, what is the meaning of the term Laue maximum when we say in a X-ray diffraction pattern?
Mm-hmm.
Just
This is like when you see the X-ray diffraction in the Laue diffraction pattern. So whenever you get a Laue diffraction pattern, they call it the Laue maximum. Basically, it's nothing like you get the maximum height or something like that. It's a terminology.
okay, it's just a term.
Yeah.
Another couple of questions. One is what is Brillouin zone and how would you like understand its significance?
Yes. So that's another. So the billion zone again, they define in many other way. I understood like in the way like the billion zone have the first billion zone, second billion zone. If you talk about the dispersion curve, I would say here it's very simple one. So here I will show you dispersion curve. Yeah. So this is the first first billion zone in the reciprocal space. This is the first what called Virginia shell where the only one lattice point is there. And if you go, this is the minus pi by to pi by a, and then it will repeat in the second. This is the second billion zone. It will go to like a 2 pi by a and minus pi by a and minus 2 pi by a. I would say the billion zone you can relate with some kind of like a lattice constant, not really lattice constant, the distance between in the reciprocal space points between the two nearest points.
Okay. Uh, how is the frequency response of the material is encoded in the dispersion relation? This is a question from one of the participants.
So this is the like a dispersion curve we are talking about. The monatomic and second for diameter atomic it will be different, and this is the frequency. So this is the any relation between the frequency and the wave vector transfer. This is the dispersion curve, and it's like typically it follows some kind of a sign. If you k1 minus cos k, if it's 2 sine k square by 2, it's some kind of like a periodic function.
Okay. Another couple of questions on the magnetism part. One is the BCS theory kind of questions, would they be expected in competitive exams? Questions based on BCS theory.
I would say a bit, yes. There could be something because BCS is the one of the I would say most popular theory for to explain the most of the superconductivity, not only all superconductivity phenomena. So yes, I would say yes. We should have a look because of the time constant. I could not cover like all the questions for the magnetism or the superconductivity. But BCS is an interesting topic, and there might be some questions from BCS. Yes.
Okay, thank you, sir. And one last question. What is susceptibility and permeability? What will be the physical significance of these two quantities?
So it's very simple in the mathematical formula. Like if you see the permeability is kind of a resistivity. Like if you apply a magnetic field, how this material is susceptible for this magnetic field. This will give you the permeability, and the susceptibility is just the ratio of the induced magnetization. M is the induced magnetization, and H is the applied magnetic field. So susceptibility is the how much the material is susceptible for the applied magnetic field. So like if this is one, it's fully accepted the applied magnetic field. If it's 0, it's not acceptable. If this is for superconductor, it's -1. That means it's the susceptible, but in the opposite direction. And permeability again, it's like a mu into B is equal to mu H. So when you apply external magnetic field, what is the how much is the like its resistivity, or I would say it allowed to gain the magnetic field of the material. So by the mathematical formula, you can get the physical significance of these two parameters.
Thank you, sir. One last question is, could you suggest a simple book which would be one level slightly easier than maybe Kittel or Ashcroft and Mermin for solid state physics?
Then I think I think the Skittle is the most the simplest one to me. And then simple language, I would say then might be some Indian publisher Gupta Kumar. You can go, but the Skittle is I think the simplest one is the Skittle and the Ashcroft Mermin. Or Pillai book is also very simple. You must try the Pillai one.
Pillai is simple, I agree.
Yeah,
There is
yeah.
also a book by Decker.
Decker is very good. Yes.
Yeah. So that would be a slightly more elementary than Kittel in
Yes,
some of the
I
topics.
completely agree. Yes.
Thank you very much, sir. That concludes all the questions.